The room didn't go quiet all at once. It happened in layers. First, the laughter faded, then the forks stopped clinking, then I realized no one was breathing normally anymore. My husband was still smiling when he made the joke. He had no idea that in a few seconds, everything he thought he controlled would begin to slip. Before I continue, let me say this. If stories about hidden truths, family betrayal, and quiet revenge speak to you, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell. Not because of me, but because stories like this deserve to be heard all the way to the end. It was my birthday dinner. Not a big one, just family. My husband insisted on hosting it at our house, said it would feel more personal. I believed him. I always did back then. The table was full. His parents, his sister and her husband, two of our friends. Candles flickered low, casting that warm light that makes everything look softer than it really is. I remember thinking how calm I felt, that rare feeling when nothing seems wrong. I should have known better. We were halfway through dessert when his sister raised her glass and made a toast. Something generic. Health, happiness, another year older. Everyone laughed, then my husband leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine like he was about to perform. "Well," he said, loud enough for the whole table, "here's hoping her inheritance shows up soon. Then maybe we can finally renovate the kitchen." He laughed. One short laugh, confident, expecting backup. Instead, the room froze. I felt heat rush to my face, but not embarrassment. Something sharper, something colder. I turned slowly and looked at him. He was still smiling, waiting for me to play along. That joke wasn't new. He'd made versions of it before, usually in private, sometimes in front of friends, always disguised as humor. I had learned to smile through it, to deflect, to tell myself he didn't mean it the way it sounded. But that night was different, because that night I was done pretending. I set my fork down gently. I didn't rush. I didn't raise my voice. I looked straight at him and said, "You mean the inheritance you already planned around without ever asking me?" Silence. His smile faltered, just slightly, not enough for most people to notice. I noticed. He cleared his throat. "Come on, it's a joke." "No," I said calmly, "it's an assumption." His mother shifted in her chair. His sisters suddenly found the tablecloth fascinating. I continued, still steady. "It's interesting how comfortable you are spending money that doesn't belong to you, especially when you don't even know the full story." That's when the room truly went silent. He stared at me now, eyes narrowed, trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I met his gaze and didn't look away. "What story?" he asked, forcing a chuckle. I smiled, not sweetly, not angrily, just knowingly. "That's the part you never bothered to ask about." Someone coughed. Someone else reached for their glass. The moment stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. I stood up. "I think I've had enough celebrating for one night. Thank you all for coming." No one argued. No one laughed. They gathered their things quietly, avoiding eye contact. My husband stayed seated, watching me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. When the door finally closed behind the last guest, he exploded. "What the hell was that?" he snapped. I turned to him slowly. "That was me answering your joke." "You embarrassed me," he said. "You embarrassed yourself," I replied. He scoffed. "You're being dramatic. Everyone knows that money is basically ours." I felt something inside me settle, like a final piece clicking into place. "That's where you're wrong," I said. He stared at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" I walked past him, heading upstairs. "It means you should have listened all those times you joked." He followed me, anger rising. "You're acting like you're hiding something." I stopped at the top of the stairs and turned around. "I wasn't hiding," I said quietly. "You just never cared enough to look." He laughed, but it sounded strained now. "Don't do this, not over some imaginary slight." I studied him in that moment. The man I'd married, the man who had always spoken about my future as if it were his safety net, the man who thought love meant access. "I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow." He tried to argue, but I closed the bedroom door. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was upset, because I was thinking, replaying moments I had brushed aside, comments he made, plans he announced without discussion, the way he told people about our future while never asking what I wanted. And beneath it all, the quiet truth I had kept to myself for years. He didn't know me as well as he thought he did. The next morning, I woke up early. He was already gone. I made coffee and sat alone at the table where everything had unraveled the night before. My phone buzzed. A message from him. "About last night. We need to talk. You crossed a line." I stared at the screen and felt nothing, because the line had been crossed long before my birthday dinner. And for the first time, I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I picked up my phone, not to reply to him, but to call someone else. Someone he never thought I would. And as the phone rang, I realized something important. The joke he made had been careless. My reply was intentional, and he was about to learn the difference. The phone rang longer than I expected, not because the person on the other end was hard to reach, but because I hesitated. My thumb hovered just above the screen while the memories flooded in. I hadn't spoken to her in years, not out of anger, out of quiet distance, the kind that builds when life moves forward and people assume you're fine because you never complain. Finally, the call connected. "Hello?" Her voice was calm, familiar, older than I remembered, but steady. "It's me," I said. "I hope I'm not calling too early." There was a pause, then a soft intake of breath. "I was wondering when you'd call." That sentence landed heavier than anything my husband had said the night before. "I didn't know if I should," I admitted. "You always should," she replied, "especially now." I closed my eyes. "You know about last night?" "You know about more than last night," she said gently. "Sit down. This might take a while." I did as she asked, gripping my coffee mug with both hands like it might keep me grounded. She didn't rush. She never had. That was why I trusted her, why my mother had trusted her. "I've been waiting," she continued, "for you to realize something on your own. Your husband's joke wasn't a joke, it was a test." "A test for what?" I asked. "For access," she said plainly. "For entitlement." My chest tightened. He thinks that money is already his. "Yes," she said, "and that belief didn't start last night." She explained slowly, carefully, how over the years he'd asked questions, casual ones, about timelines, about what my mother would have wanted, about how things might be handled once everything's settled. "I never answered directly," she said, "because none of it was his business, but I noted every question." I swallowed. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you weren't ready to hear it," she replied, "and because sometimes people need to see the truth revealed by the person they trust most." I knew exactly who she meant. My husband. "Last night," I said quietly, "something shifted." "I know. That's why I answered on the first ring." I stared at the wall across from me, my reflection faint in the glass. "He's angry. He thinks I humiliated him." "Did you?" she asked. "No," I said. "I spoke." She exhaled slowly. "Then you did nothing wrong." We talked for over an hour, not about money, about patterns, behavior, the way control often disguises itself as humor or concern, how assumptions can be louder than demands. By the time we hung up, my coffee was cold, but my mind was clear. I wasn't imagining things. I never had been. When my husband came home that afternoon, I was ready. He walked in like nothing had changed, but his jaw was tight. He dropped his keys harder than necessary. "We need to set some ground rules," he said. I looked up from the book I was reading. "I agree." He seemed surprised. "Good, then you'll apologize." I closed the book. "No." His eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I won't apologize for correcting a false assumption, especially one you've been comfortable repeating. He scoffed. You're blowing this out of proportion. Am I? I asked calmly. Because you made plans around something that isn't yours. You said it out loud in front of people. He rolled his eyes. It's marriage. What's yours is mine. That's not how respect works, I replied. He leaned forward. So what, you're going to punish me now? That word again. Punish. No, I said. I'm going to observe. He laughed sharply. Observe what? You, and how you respond when you don't get your way. For a moment, I thought he might explode. Instead, he smiled, a thin, controlled smile. You're acting different, he said. I am different because I'm listening now. He walked away, muttering something under his breath. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Over the next few days, I watched closely. The small comments returned, subtle, calculated. He mentioned expenses, future plans, how we needed to be aligned, how stress affected him. I didn't react. That seemed to bother him more than anything. One evening, he tried a softer approach. I just worry about you, he said, sitting beside me on the couch. You've been distant. I've been attentive, I corrected. To what? He asked. To patterns, I said, and expectations. He sighed. You're overthinking. No, I replied. I'm finally thinking. He stood up abruptly. So what, you don't trust me? I looked at him. Really looked. I trust what you show me, I said. That night, he slept on the couch. His choice, not mine. The next morning, his mother called. I heard there was tension at the dinner, she said carefully. There was honesty, I replied. She paused. You embarrassed my son. I responded to him, I said. Those aren't the same thing. Another pause, longer this time. You know, she said, marriages require compromise. So does respect, I replied, and that hasn't been equal. She ended the call shortly after. The pressure increased after that, from his family, from friends, even from people who claimed to be neutral. Everyone wanted me to smooth things over. No one asked why the joke was acceptable in the first place. That told me everything. One afternoon, I received a message from him while I was out. Dinner tonight. We need to talk, properly. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I replied, okay. But I knew something he didn't. That conversation wouldn't be about compromise. It would be about truth. And once spoken, it couldn't be taken back. As I drove home that evening, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not anger, not fear, certainty. Because when someone shows you who they believe you are to them, the most powerful response isn't confrontation, it's clarity. And I had more of that than he could imagine. When I walked through the front door that evening, the house felt staged. The lights were softer than usual. Dinner was already on the table. He was standing by the counter, calm in a way that didn't reach his eyes. This wasn't reconciliation. This was strategy. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He poured wine into both glasses, slid one toward me. I didn't touch it. That didn't go unnoticed. You don't trust me now? He asked, forcing a light tone. I'm listening, I replied. That requires clarity. He took a sip of his wine, watching me over the rim of the glass. You've been distant since your birthday, defensive. I've been observant, I said again. There's a difference. He leaned back. I made a joke. You escalated it into a spectacle. No, I said calmly. I answered it honestly. The spectacle was everyone realizing you meant it. His jaw tightened. You're twisting things. Am I? I asked. Because you've talked about that money like it's already part of your plans. renovations, investments, loans. You never asked me how I felt about any of it. We're married, he snapped. That's how it works. That's how entitlement works, I corrected. Not partnership. He slammed his glass down. So what, you think I married you for money? I met his eyes. I'm saying you grew comfortable assuming it would benefit you. Silence fell between us. He stood up, pacing now. You think I don't contribute? I've worked for everything we have. I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about expectation, about how easily you joked about something deeply personal to me, in public. He stopped pacing and turned to me. You're acting like you betrayed me. Because you did, I replied quietly. That landed. He laughed once sharply. This is ridiculous. You're letting people get into your head. Who? I asked. He hesitated. Your family, that lawyer you're always so fond of, people who don't understand us. They understand me, which is more than I can say right now. His face hardened. So you called her? Yes, I said. And, he demanded, and she confirmed what I've been sensing for years, I replied, that you've been asking questions you had no right to ask, planning for something that was never yours to plan. He stared at me, stunned. She told you that? She didn't need to, I said. You told me yourself. Every time you joked, every time you assumed. He ran a hand through his hair. I was just being practical. No, I said. You were being presumptuous. He pointed at me. You're acting superior. I'm acting aware, I replied. The conversation went in circles after that. Denial, deflection, accusations. He never apologized, not once. Not for the joke, not for the assumption, not for the pressure. Instead, he tried something else. Fear. You know, he said finally, lowering his voice, this kind of tension isn't healthy. People will talk. Your family, mine. They'll wonder what's wrong with you. I felt something inside me snap into focus. There it is, I said softly. What? He asked. The threat, I replied, disguised as concern. He scoffed. You're paranoid. No, I said. I'm finally seeing the pattern. When you don't get agreement, you apply pressure. When pressure doesn't work, you imply consequences. He stood there, silent now. You think I owe you access to my future, to my choices, to things I haven't even decided yet. He crossed his arms. I'm your husband. And I'm a person, I replied, not a contingency plan. That was the moment his mask fully dropped. So what are you saying? You're just going to hoard everything and leave me out? I'm saying, I replied evenly, that you've shown me exactly how you view me, and I'm responding accordingly. He laughed, but it was hollow. You think you're in control here? I think, I said, standing up, that control is the thing you are afraid of losing. I walked away from the table, leaving my untouched wine behind. That night, I slept in the guest room. The next morning, he acted as if nothing had happened. He made coffee, asked if I wanted toast, commented on the weather. I watched him like I'd never watched anyone before. Not with suspicion, with understanding. Over the next week, his behavior shifted again. He became charming, attentive. He complimented me in front of others, told friends how proud he was of me, how strong I was. It was almost convincing. Almost. Until I noticed the timing. Every compliment followed a question. Every kindness preceded an expectation. Have you thought more about the future? Don't you think we should be aligned? I just want to feel secure too. Security. That word again. One evening, as we sat watching television, he said casually, "My sister mentioned something interesting today." I didn't respond. "And I defended you," he said quickly. "I said you're just careful." I looked at him. Why was that even a conversation? He shrugged. People notice things. Yes, I said, they do. The truth was, people had started noticing because I had stopped performing. I no longer smiled on cue, I no longer deflected comments, I answered questions honestly, or not at all. And that made him uneasy. One afternoon, while I was out, I received a message from his sister. "I hope you're not letting money come between you." I stared at the screen, then deleted it. That evening, I called the woman I trusted again. "I think he's scared," I said. "He should be. Not of losing money, of losing leverage." "What do I do?" I asked. "Nothing dramatic. Just don't give him what he expects." "And what's that?" "Control," she replied. I hung up feeling steady, because I realized something then. My reply at the birthday dinner hadn't started this. It had exposed it. And now, everything he did was confirmation. The final test came a few days later. We were getting ready for bed when he said, almost casually, "If something ever happened to you, I'd be responsible for managing things, right?" I froze. Slowly, I turned to face him. "Why would you ask that?" I said. He smiled. "Just planning." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said the words that would change everything. "No," I replied. "You wouldn't." And in that instant, I saw it in his eyes. Not anger, not confusion, fear. Because for the first time, he realized the truth. He had built his expectations on a version of me that no longer existed, and I wasn't going back. That night, as he fell asleep beside me, I lay awake, fully aware that the most dangerous part of betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the moment the betrayer realizes they've lost control. And that moment had arrived. That fear didn't disappear the next morning. It lingered. I saw it in the way he watched me over his coffee, in how his questions became cautious, almost rehearsed, in how he stopped making jokes entirely, as if humor itself had betrayed him. He knew something had shifted. He just didn't know how far. I didn't confront him right away. I didn't announce decisions. I let time do what it does best when someone is guilty of quiet entitlement. It exposes them. Over the next few weeks, I made small changes. I took back space I'd given up without realizing it. I scheduled things without asking his opinion first. I declined plans he made on my behalf. I spoke for myself, even when it made rooms uncomfortable. He noticed everything. "You're different," he said one evening, not accusing this time, just uncertain. "I'm consistent. You're just seeing it clearly now." He didn't like that answer. The real breaking point came at another family gathering, not a celebration, just a casual dinner at his parents' house, the kind of setting where people feel safe enough to be careless. We were sitting around the table when his sister brought up future plans, vacations, investments, joking about how we'd all be comfortable someday. She looked directly at me when she said it. I didn't smile. Instead, I asked a simple question. Why does everyone keep speaking about my future like it's a group project? The table went quiet. My husband stiffened beside me. His mother cleared her throat. "Oh, you know how she means," his mother said quickly. "Just conversation." "No," I replied calmly. "It's expectation." My husband jumped in. "You're reading too much into it." I turned to him. "Am I? Or is this just the first time I'm not playing along?" His sister laughed nervously. "We're family." "That doesn't mean access," I said. "It means respect." The silence this time felt heavier than at my birthday. Later that night, on the drive home, he exploded. "You embarrassed everyone," he said, gripping the steering wheel. "You're acting like we're plotting against you." "I'm acting like someone who's tired of being discussed instead of consulted." "You're pushing people away," he snapped. "No," I said. "I'm stepping out of reach." That was when he said it, the thing he could never take back. "You wouldn't even have what you have without me supporting you all these years." I turned to him slowly. "Supporting me how?" By being here, by handling things, by making sure you didn't have to worry. I nodded. You mean by deciding things for me? He slammed his hand at the steering wheel. You're impossible. No, I said. I'm independent, and that scares you. We didn't speak the rest of the drive. That night, I packed a bag. Not dramatically, not in anger, quietly, methodically. When he saw it, he didn't stop me. He just stared. You're leaving? He asked. I'm taking space, I replied, because this marriage stopped being safe the moment you saw me as leverage. You're overreacting, he said, weaker now. I'm responding, I replied, for the first time. I stayed with a friend for a few days, long enough to breathe, to think, to listen to my own thoughts without his voice layered over them. He called, he texted, he apologized, but only for how things came across, never for what they meant. That told me everything. When I finally agreed to meet him, it was in a neutral place, quiet, public, controlled. He looked tired, smaller. I don't want to lose you, he said. I believed that, but not for the reason he thought. I don't want to be owned, I replied. I never owned you, he said quickly. You tried, I said, with jokes, with pressure, with expectation, and when that didn't work, with fear. He looked away. I loved you, he said. I know, I replied, but love without respect becomes entitlement. We talked for hours, not arguing, not fighting, unraveling. By the end of it, the truth was clear. He didn't want a partner. He wanted certainty, security, control disguised as unity. And I couldn't be that for him anymore. We separated quietly. No public drama, no accusations, just a clean acknowledgement that something fundamental had broken. Word traveled, of course. Family members reached out, some sympathetic, some confused, a few judgmental. I answered only what mattered. He made assumptions about my future without my consent, I said, and I stopped allowing it. That was enough. Months later, I hosted my own dinner. Smaller, people I trusted, no performances. At one point, someone raised a glass and joked about my new chapter. I smiled. This chapter, I said, belongs to me. They laughed, genuinely this time. As the night wound down, I thought back to that birthday dinner. The joke, the silence, the moment everything changed. My reply hadn't been loud. It hadn't been cruel. It had been honest. And that honesty had cost me a marriage, but given me myself. That's the thing about revenge people don't understand. It's not always about taking something away. Sometimes it's about refusing to be taken from. I didn't ruin his plans. I simply stepped out of them. And in doing so, I finally stepped into my own life.